But the moment he walked inside, something felt off. The restaurant, a place known for catering to the elite, was packed with well-dressed guests, sipping expensive wine and enjoying gourmet meals. Then the manager appeared. His face was tight with tension, his hands clasped in front of him, and when he spoke, his words sent shockwaves through the room. "I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, but we can't serve you tonight. Stay tuned until the end. I hope you love it." Barron Trump had dined in places like this before. He wasn't here for an event, a meeting, or any kind of spectacle. It was just supposed to be a normal dinner. Nothing more, nothing less. He walked in with quiet confidence, dressed sharply yet casually, his tall frame impossible to miss. He wasn't flanked by an entourage, just a couple of discreet security agents who knew their job was to blend in, not attract attention. As he approached the host stand, the usual process should have begun: a polite greeting, a check of the reservation, and an escort to his table. But it didn't. Instead, the hostess hesitated. It was subtle, a quick glance over her shoulder, a barely noticeable shift in her stance. But Barron caught it immediately. She was waiting for something, or someone. A murmur spread through the restaurant, like a wave rolling across the tables. Some diners stole quick glances in his direction before turning back to their meals, pretending not to care. Others openly watched, their expressions unreadable. Barron remained calm, patient. He was used to attention, used to being recognized, used to the way people either admired or judged him before he even spoke a word. Then a man emerged from the back. He was older, dressed in a tailored suit, the kind of figure who commanded authority in a place like this. The restaurant manager. His steps were slow, deliberate, as if he had rehearsed what he was about to say. The murmurs in the restaurant quieted as he approached, stopping just in front of Barron. The manager's smile was polite, but it didn't reach his eyes. His hands were clasped in front of him, his posture stiff. Barron's security team remained still, watching but not interfering. They were waiting, just like everyone else, to see how this moment would play out. The manager cleared his throat. "Mr. Trump," he began, his voice steady but low, "I'm afraid we won't be able to accommodate you tonight." A second of silence followed. Barron raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" The manager exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry, sir. We cannot serve you this evening." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. A few guests exchanged knowing looks. Others whispered. The tension in the air grew thick, pressing down on every table, every waiter frozen in place. Barron remained still, expression unreadable. He had come here expecting a meal. Instead, he had just been denied, publicly, deliberately, and with every eye in the room watching. For a moment, Barron Trump simply stood there, letting the weight of the manager's words settle in. The world around him didn't stop. Glasses still clinked, forks scraped against plates, and waiters moved between tables. But something had shifted. It was as if the entire restaurant was holding its breath, waiting to see how he would react. He tilted his head slightly, studying the manager's face. There was no anger in Barron's expression, no immediate demand for an explanation. He was calm, too calm. "Why is that?" His voice was steady, controlled. The manager hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. He wasn't dealing with a man known for outbursts or public theatrics. He was facing someone who had grown up in the world of politics, who had spent his entire life watching power dynamics play out like a game of chess. "It's a private business," the manager finally said, "and we reserve the right to refuse service." It was a vague response, one that left more questions than answers. Barron knew it wasn't about reservations or policies. It was about him. He could feel the eyes on him, could hear the hushed whispers from nearby tables. Across the room, a woman leaned toward her husband. "Can they even do that?" she murmured, barely audible over the soft music playing in the background. Another guest, an older man in a sharp suit, smirked slightly as he sipped his wine. He didn't say anything, but his expression spoke volumes. He had been waiting for this moment. Barron glanced around, taking in the reactions. Some guests looked uncomfortable, unsure whether they agreed with what was happening. Others, particularly a table in the back, watched with amusement, as if enjoying some private joke. Then, in a move that sent another ripple of tension through the restaurant, the manager took a small step closer and lowered his voice. "It's nothing personal, sir," he said quietly, "but we've had concerns." Concerns. That was all Barron needed to hear. He had been in the public eye his entire life, not by choice, but by birth. He knew what it meant when people whispered about concerns. It meant someone had pressured them. Someone had made it clear that his presence wasn't welcome. His security team remained still, waiting for his cue. They had likely expected him to turn around and walk out, to take the high road and leave without making a scene. But Barron had a different idea. A slow smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. He exhaled through his nose, nodding slightly, as if he had just solved a puzzle. He reached into his pocket, not aggressively, but smoothly, like someone retrieving a business card. But instead of a card, he pulled out his phone. A flick of his thumb unlocked the screen. The manager shifted uncomfortably. Barron glanced up, expression unreadable. "So, just to be clear," he said, his voice carrying a bit more weight now, "you're refusing me service?" The manager swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." Barron nodded once. "Okay." And with that, he lifted his phone and took a picture. The flash was off. No theatrics, no big scene. Just one simple photo of the restaurant interior, the elegant dining room, the polished chandeliers. He typed something quickly, then hit send. No one knew what he had just done, but they were about to find out. And when they did, it would change everything. The manager shifted uncomfortably as Barron Trump slipped his phone back into his pocket. The restaurant, though still filled with quiet chatter and the distant clinking of glasses, had an undeniable tension hanging over it. People were watching, some pretending not to, others staring outright. Barron didn't argue. He didn't demand an explanation. Instead, he simply stood there, letting the moment stretch. His calmness unsettled the manager more than an outburst ever could. He exhaled slowly, adjusting the sleeve of his jacket. "Interesting," he said, almost to himself. The manager cleared his throat. "Again, sir, it's nothing personal." Barron held up a hand, silencing him. "You don't have to explain," he said, a small smirk tugging at his lips. "You've made your decision, and I've made mine." His security detail, standing a few steps behind him, remained composed, but they had seen enough situations like this to know something was unfolding. This wasn't just a dinner rejection. This was turning into a statement. Barron took one last look around the room. His eyes landed briefly on a group at the far end of the restaurant, a table of well-dressed, high-profile guests, one of whom had been glancing in his direction since the moment he walked in. The smirk on the man's face told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't just about the restaurant. Someone had made a call. Someone had ensured that Barron Trump wouldn't be allowed to dine there. He let that realization settle in. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and walked toward the exit. His security followed, their movements swift and controlled, as if nothing had happened at all. As he reached the door, he paused and glanced over his shoulder. "Enjoy your evening," he said, his voice smooth, but laced with something sharp beneath the surface. And with that, he was gone. The moment Barron stepped onto the sidewalk, his phone buzzed again. He pulled it out, checked the screen, and grinned. His post. Just a simple photo of the restaurant with 3 words beneath it. "Not welcome here," had already started to explode. Within minutes, the internet had caught fire. What happened? Why was Baron Trump denied service? Who made the call to turn him away? Speculation ran wild. Some assumed it was a personal vendetta from the restaurant. Others theorized that someone powerful behind the scenes had pressured them. No one had the full story yet, but everyone was talking. His security detail opened the car door, but Barron didn't step in right away. He turned to one of his guards. "Find me another restaurant," he said casually. "A better one." The man nodded, already making calls. Barron glanced at his phone again. Another buzz, this time a text from someone unexpected. A well-known businessman, one of the country's biggest restaurant investors. "If they don't want your business, I know a dozen places that do. Let's make a night out of it." Barron chuckled. He typed back quickly. "Sounds good. Let's make it public." The security team exchanged looks, knowing exactly what was happening. Barron Trump wasn't just walking away from a rejection. He was about to turn this into a moment the world wouldn't forget. As Barron Trump stepped into his SUV, the city lights flickered against the tinted windows. His security team was silent, waiting for instructions, but Barron had already made up his mind. This wasn't just about a denied dinner, it was about sending a message. His phone screen glowed as he scrolled through the flood of reactions to his post. Wait, did Barron Trump just get kicked out of a restaurant? This is ridiculous. What kind of place refuses service to someone just because of their last name? Who made the call to turn him away? Something tells me this goes deeper than just a policy decision. The speculation was growing by the second. Some users were digging into the restaurant's ownership, looking for political connections. Others were demanding answers, tagging the restaurant's social media accounts, demanding an explanation. Barron smiled slightly. He had learned one thing from his father. Sometimes you don't need to fight battles yourself. You just have to let the world see the truth. Then, another text came in. "I booked a private dining hall. Best chefs, best food. You in?" The sender, one of the most well-known restaurant moguls in the country. Someone who knew exactly how to turn a moment like this into an opportunity. Barron's smirk deepened. He typed back quickly, "I'll be there. Let's make it a night to remember." Inside the restaurant, the tension hadn't faded. The manager stood behind the podium, rubbing the back of his neck as the reality of what had just happened started to sink in. A waiter whispered to another near the bar, "Did we just make a huge mistake?" At a nearby table, a couple scrolled through their phones, their eyes widening. Honey?" the woman said, nudging her husband. "This is all over Twitter." The husband glanced at the screen, then at the manager, then back at the screen. A deep frown settled on his face. "Let's get the check," he muttered. "I'm not sure I want to eat here anymore." They weren't the only ones. Slowly, diners began requesting their checks early. Some left with quiet frustration, others with visible anger. One man at the bar muttered, "I don't care who he is, kicking someone out like that, bad business move." And just like that, the night had shifted. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, an entirely different scene was unfolding. Barron Trump walked into one of the most exclusive private dining halls in the city, where a table was already set for him and a group of high-profile guests, business leaders, public figures, and even a few unexpected supporters who had watched the night's events unfold in real time. The cameras were already there, snapping photos as guests arrived. Journalists whispered amongst themselves, sensing that this was quickly becoming the event of the night. A well-dressed host approached Barron with a warm smile. "Mr. Trump, welcome. Your table is ready." Unlike the last place, there was no hesitation, no nervous glances, no whispers, only open doors. Barron took his seat, the hum of conversation buzzing around him. Within minutes, drinks were poured, plates were served, and the energy in the room was electric. This wasn't just dinner anymore. This was a statement. And the best part? Every guest in attendance was posting about it. Photos and videos of Barron's private dinner spread like wildfire. The contrast was staggering. One restaurant had denied him service, and another had rolled out the red carpet. The captions said it all. One restaurant kicked him out, another gave him the VIP treatment. Guess which one will be thriving next month? The best revenge. Living well. Barron Trump just turned rejection into the hottest dinner event in the city. That restaurant messed up big time. This new place is getting all the publicity. As Barron lifted his glass, someone at the table leaned in and asked, "So, are you going to respond to what happened?" Barron smirked. He didn't need to say much. The world was already speaking for him, but he did have one thing to add. He grabbed his phone, opened Twitter, and typed just 2 words: "No hard feelings." Then he hit send. And just like that, the night that had started as rejection had turned into a victory. By the time Barron Trump's dinner was over, the internet was already on fire. What had started as a quiet rejection at a restaurant had exploded into something far bigger. News outlets, social media influencers, and political commentators were all weighing in. The headline dominating the news cycle was clear: Barron Trump denied service. His response leaves everyone speechless. Fox News ran a breaking segment showing a side-by-side of the 2 restaurants, one where Barron had been turned away and the other where he had been welcomed like royalty. "This is what happens when businesses forget the golden rule," the anchor said. "You never know who you're turning away or how it will come back to haunt you." Meanwhile, CNN took a different approach, debating whether businesses had the right to deny service based on personal or political reasons. A panel of analysts argued back and forth, but the damage had already been done. Everyone was talking about what had happened rather than whether it was right or wrong. Twitter was a battlefield. The hashtag number Barron Trump denied was trending worldwide, and the reactions were intense. Wait. So Barron Trump got kicked out of a restaurant, and instead of causing a scene, he just went somewhere better. That's next-level classy. Imagine owning a business and choosing to publicly embarrass a guest like this. Good luck recovering from that. That other restaurant is thriving now, proof that treating people with respect pays off. But it wasn't just everyday users chiming in. Celebrities, politicians, and business moguls were all adding fuel to the fire. One well-known chef tweeted, "My restaurant doors are always open to anyone who treats my staff and guests with respect. Business should be about service, not politics." Another tweet from a major hotel chain CEO took a more humorous approach. "Whoever kicked Barron Trump out of their restaurant just gave their biggest competitor free marketing for life. Great business strategy." Back at the restaurant that had denied Barron service, things were falling apart. The manager sat at his desk, scrolling through an overwhelming flood of emails, phone calls, and social media notifications. Negative reviews were piling up on Google and Yelp. The restaurant's Instagram page had been flooded with thousands of comments, most of them furious. One review stood out: "Used to love this place, but if they're going to deny service to people for personal reasons, I'll take my business elsewhere. Bad look." Then came the phone call he had been dreading. The restaurant's owner, who had been out of town, had just landed, and he was furious. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice boomed through the phone. "We've lost 3 major reservations for next week. Corporate clients are pulling out. Fix this." The manager swallowed hard. There was no fixing this. As the backlash grew, so did the attention on Barron's alternative dinner. More and more guests had shown up at the second restaurant, some of them switching venues after hearing about what had happened. The owner of the new restaurant, thrilled by the publicity, took the opportunity to make a statement. "We believe in hospitality," he told reporters. "We don't judge guests by their name or their politics. We judge them by how they treat others. And Barron Trump, he's welcome here any time." Barron himself remained mostly quiet. He didn't need to gloat. He didn't need to attack. The world was speaking for him. But before the night ended, he posted just one more message on social media. A simple photo, his dinner table filled with smiling guests, incredible food, and a warm atmosphere. The caption, "A better table, a better night." And with that, the debate was over. One restaurant had made a choice, and Barron Trump had made a better one. By the next morning, the fallout was impossible to ignore. What had started as a quiet act of refusal had turned into a national controversy. The restaurant that had denied Barron Trump was now at the center of a PR nightmare. News crews camped outside its doors, hoping to get a statement, but inside, the mood was grim. The once busy dining room now had empty tables. Reservations had been cancelled by the dozens, and corporate clients, who once proudly associated with the restaurant's prestige, were distancing themselves. The restaurant's owner, now fully aware of the disaster, had no choice but to respond. A carefully worded statement appeared on the restaurant's website and social media. "We regret any misunderstanding regarding last night's events. Our restaurant welcomes all guests, and we deeply respect every individual's right to dine with us." But it was too late. The damage was done, and people weren't buying the apology. One user commented, "You didn't misunderstand anything. You made a choice. Now live with it." Another simply wrote, "I'll take my business elsewhere." Hope it was worth it. Meanwhile, the restaurant that had welcomed Barron Trump was thriving. The second restaurant, where Barron had gone after being refused service, had become the most talked-about dining spot in the country. Phone lines were jammed with new reservation requests. Food critics who had never paid much attention to the establishment were now eager to review it. Even more surprising, other restaurant owners around the country were reaching out to Barron, offering him VIP treatment anytime he wanted. But Barron, he wasn't focused on revenge. He wasn't interested in boycotts or lawsuits. He had already won in the best way possible by moving forward.